there, avid listeners. Thanks again for tuning in to Sin's Workshop. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Alright, today we are going to talk about Godstorm by Coco Ma. Alright, here's the deal. I read Shadow Frost, the first book in this series, and I loved it. You know, I went back, I reread my review, and I loved it. But I guess it wasn't as memorable as I had first thought, because here I am reading Godstorm and I'm like so confused by everything that's going on, and I shouldn't be. I remember bits and pieces of Shadow Frost. You know, Asterin is queen. The woman she thought was her mother wasn't really her mother. She saved the man she loves over her best friend Luna, who feels absolutely betrayed. There's the God of Shadow. I mean, I remember bits and pieces of things that happened in the first book. I remember bits and pieces. However, remembering those bits and pieces just didn't allow me to really appreciate this novel. I really do think for me to have really liked this novel, I would have had to reread the first novel. And I feel like that's a shame, because I wanted to like this novel as much as I remember liking the first book. I was so excited to get a copy of this book. I'm like, yes, I finally have it. Can't wait to read it. But I was just not feeling it. I wasn't as engaged in this novel as I was in the first one. I thought it was well written, don't get me wrong. It was well written. I am looking forward to the third book, but I think before I read the third book, I will reread Shadow Frost, and I will read Godstorm. At least that's the hope. That is the hope. But what I'm getting at is, you know, the story was good. I just couldn't get lost in it as much as I wanted to. It does go between a lot of perspectives. We're following Harry, the demon who saved them all. You know, Harry's in love with Orion. Orion doesn't really remember anyone. He's lost in the Shadow Realm with King Eowyn, the God of Shadow. It's just, it's a lot, I want to say. I'm sorry, I want to try really hard to give this book a good review, because it wasn't a bad book. By no means. You know, it was written really well. There was lots of fast pacing. I do think we needed a little bit more transitioning between scenes and character perspectives, because I was a little confused as to where these characters were at times. So I was just like, wait, where is she? And I do think the novel needed a little bit more world building. I like that there's a map in the beginning, but you know, a map isn't always enough. I needed a little bit more context, a little bit more scene building and scene description and structure to lose myself in the story. Because at times, especially when I was following Asterin, I'm like, where is she now? She moves around a lot. Her and Luna move around a lot. And I wish I had been grounded more, is what I'm getting at. I wish I had been grounded more in what was happening in this story. But unfortunately, I kept going back, like, I kept struggling. That's my point. I really did struggle reading this novel because I was lost. If I'd had more time, I think I would have just ended up putting it down and saying, okay, let me get a copy of Shadow Frost and reread it, because I'm not really appreciating this story. I do think there did need to be more world building in this novel. I think if there had been more world building and a little bit more detailing as to what exactly happened in the first novel, we do get tidbits of what happened in the first novel. We do know what happened, which helped me remember bits and pieces of the first novel. But I really was struggling to lose myself in the story and in this narrative. I was confused and lost, and I really can't pinpoint why I was confused and lost. I had the time I was like, wait, what's happening now? And I'm like, I'm just like, what? I'm really sorry. This is not my best podcast, unfortunately. But that's how I felt when I was reading it. And I'm expressing this to you because if you're a fan of the series, if you like Coco Ma's writing, and I do like her writing style, I do like Astrid as a character. She's really fierce. She's a formidable character. I loved her in the first book, and I do remember loving her now. Luna kind of pissed me off, though. I'm not Luna's biggest fan right now. She has a lot of abandonment issues, and she's taking them all on Astrid, and it's not really deserved, in my opinion. I mean, Astrid was caught between a rock and a hard place. She had to make a choice, and she could only save one. You know, I get that hurt that Luna's feeling, but she is facing a lot of abandonment issues, and she's taking it all on Astrid, and she goes down a very dark path. I do like that she's going down a dark path. I think that that gives her an interesting edge. I just didn't like how whiny she was, I guess, is what I'm getting at. I did not appreciate how whiny she was. I didn't think it was necessary, and I didn't like how she treated Astrid. She took out all her pain and anger on Astrid because she was there. So she was pretty much treating her friend like a punching bag, and then just became an evil bitch. But I really wanted to lose myself in the story, and I just couldn't. I think I needed a little bit more information to lose myself in the story. I need a little bit more information on the tension that is happening now in this story. What's happening now? I think that's what I needed. And I'm saying this as a fan of Coco Ma. If you liked Shadowfrost, but you're already kind of struggling to remember what happened in it, reread it before you read Godstorm. I just didn't have the time. I wish I did, though. You know, I've got this pile of advanced reader copies that I'm struggling to get through. I'm at that point where I'm just like, if I don't like the story, I'm just putting it down and just giving it a 1 or 2 star. But luckily, you know, I really wanted to finish Godstorm, and I'm glad I did. But I did find myself skimming. I did feel like the story was dragging a little bit too long at parts. I kind of just been like, okay, get on with it already, at times, unfortunately. So, you know, this is Godstorm by Coco Ma. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. Hopefully in the future, when book 3 comes out, I can reread books 1 and 2, so that way when I'm reading book 3, I'm going into it remembering, everything in the previous novels is fresh. I just wish Shadowfrost had stuck with me as much as other books stick with me, but it didn't. It was not as memorable as I thought it was, unfortunately. And considering how I feel about Godstorm, I'm definitely going to have to reread it before I read the 3rd book. I'm going to need both books fresh in my head before I read this 3rd book. But, that's just me. That's just my opinion. That's just how I felt about it. Everyone at work would be like, what are you reading? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just reading at this point. I wasn't really enjoying myself, and I hate that. I hate when I'm not enjoying myself when I'm reading. I hate when I don't lose myself in the story. I just read these 3 books this week, and I'm like, I couldn't put them down. But, that's just me. My opinion is my own. I do recommend, especially if you loved Shadowfrost, if you remember it, you're going to enjoy this book. Hands down. But, it wouldn't hurt to reread it. I think if you read it, you will appreciate Godstorm way more than I did. You'll be more focused on the world building. You will have a clear head of the world building. I just think, like, especially with the library, I'm like, where did this great mystical library come from? I'm confused. I'm like, everyone apparently has access to this. It was a little confusing. I needed a little bit more detail, and that's just one example. But once again, Godstorm by Coco Ma, I'm going to go ahead and give it 3 out of 5 stars, 3.5. If you want to purchase the book, I do recommend purchasing the book off bookshop.org. If you want to check out the book because you're unsure if you're really going to appreciate it, please check it out at your local library. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.